Welcome everyone to our episode 57 of our podcast, Cultivating a New Generation. In today's episode, we have an honored guest, Elizabeth Kipp, and we are going to speak about release the burdens of the past with ancestral clearing. And in order to begin the conversation, I'm going to introduce Elizabeth. She is a chronic pain specialist, yoga informed addiction recovery coach. She is an ancestral clearing practitioner, certified yoga and meditation teacher, and international best-selling author of The Way Through Chronic Pain, Tools to Reclaim Your Healing Power. She focuses on helping people realize the power of their inherent healing. Elizabeth healed from over 40 years of chronic pain, including anxiety, panic attacks, and 32 years of addiction to prescribed opiate and benzodiazepine medication. She now works to help others achieve the same healing that she experienced directly from the work that she teaches. In addition, Elizabeth offers one-on-one and group sessions in stress and chronic pain management and addiction recovery, ancestral clearing, trauma-informed yoga, and meditation. You can find out more about Elizabeth on her website, and we're going to post that at the end of the notes in the episode. So, in order to begin, the usual question is, what is your journey, Elizabeth? Can you enlighten us in part of your story, and how did you arrive to this practitioner?
Great. Thank you for the introduction. It's great to be here, and I love the question.
Thank you.
As you said in the introduction, I had a long history of chronic pain, and I was on medication for a long time. I really didn't like being on the medication. It was just making me, I was just getting sicker and sicker. And I finally found a doctor who actually knew another way to heal me. I knew that the doctors that had me on the medication, they didn't know that. All they knew was like, here's some medication because we don't know how to heal chronic pain. You're going to be on it the rest of your life, was kind of what they were saying. And I finally met a doctor who was like, okay, no, we can reset your stress response. The pain medication may be causing the pain, and we can help you detox off the pain medication. I'm like, who are you and where have you been all my life? And anyway, he wrote a book. He took me I was in his program, pain management program. He detoxed me off the medication. I went in there, 40 years of chronic pain, all those years of medication. And 52 days later, I walked out with no pain. And it wasn't just me. He had a 94% success rate, and most of his patients had been on medication. And they all called us hickory nut cases other doctors couldn't crack, right? And he wrote this book, Conquer Chronic Pain, an Innovative Mind-Body Approach. He was a researcher. It was a researcher and also obviously chronic pain management specialist, but a neurophysiologist. So he really understood the changes that happen in the brain as a result of chronic pain.
Wow.
In that program, one of the modalities that he was using to help people was ancestral clearing. And John Newton of healthbeyondbelief.com, who teaches the method that I learned, he was there in that program as part of that program, and he introduced me to ancestral clearing. And I had no idea what was coming when he walked in the room. I was just sitting there recently out of a hospital bed from detoxing. I was in a room full of 20 people who were also detoxing off medication. I didn't know anybody in the room. I had barely met the doctor. I talked to him on the phone, but I really didn't know him very well. And I certainly didn't know John. Anyway, I'm sitting there just kind of like a sponge waiting to see, right? And And John walks in the room and he had a piece of paper and he asked everybody what their pain level was from 0 to 10 on a scale of 0 to 10. And in that room, in that day, everybody was from an 8. I was at an 8 to a 20 were the numbers that got shouted out. And he had this prayer written on a piece of paper in English. And I knew about Sanskrit words and as power words, but I didn't know. I mean, I just didn't have any experience with English as power word. It wasn't in my consciousness. I have a science background in research, so I'm always kind of, in that mode. There's a part of me that's always kind of coming from that perspective. Anyway, he comes in, what's your pain level? He hands everybody this piece of paper. It has a prayer on it. I didn't even know it had a prayer. I just saw it was English. And he said, I want everybody to read that silently. It was just one page. He wanted us to read it. We didn't read it out loud, just silently. And I start reading it, doing like I'm told. And it's this forgiveness prayer, which is interesting. We're asking higher power to help us release what we're carrying, right? And I got halfway through that prayer, halfway down that sheet of paper, and I felt the energy in the room shift. And I thought that's interesting. And then I was like, something's happening in this room. And I went, Elizabeth, you're detoxing. That's just your imagination, right? That's just part of your detox. I just was laughing at myself. And then I felt my pain start to disappear. And that wasn't my imagination. That was real, right? So I was like, what's going on here? And by the time we finished the prayer, John says, what's everybody's pain level? And everybody's pain level was from an 8 to a 0. And mine was at a 2, down from an 8. And the 20s were down, to an 8 or 6 or 0. It was really interesting. Everybody's pain level was much. And I'm like, what just happened here? Like, how does this work? And is it repeatable? And can we test this? And we need to do research on this. And does he teach it? And the answer kind of to all of that was yes. And so I went and took the first practitioner training I could once I got out of that program, which is about 6 months later. And I've been doing it everywhere, somewhere on the planet, pretty much every day since, right? As it's a beautiful internet. I do a lot of work online. I do some in person. I do groups when we don't have COVID. I do live groups, right? It's so a very interesting. I had no idea that until that moment in that program, I had no idea that part of the chronic pain that I was carrying had to do with the burden in my family that I came in with, as well as how I was carrying that burden, right? So very interesting. So that's my story. And that's a little bit about what ancestral clearing is. A little bit. I'd like to give your listeners give you and your listeners an experience of it, but that's kind of the backstory.
Okay, perfect. I'm intrigued about also as you narrate the process of how you were healing. What is the text about? I mean, is there something? It's like a mantra. It's like, do you have to close your eyes? There's something extra in the room besides the reading, or how do they access that energy?
I love that. I love that question. So it's really interesting. You don't have to believe in a higher power for this stuff to work.
Okay.
And the elements of the prayer, right? Just a structure is we're asking higher power, whatever it is, whatever that power is that created the universe, right? The all it is, like whatever created that, we're asking that. We're asking that to help us release what we're carrying. And we say, please and thank you. So it's like creator, whatever you call that, God, whatever. This is the thing I carry. Can you please help me release it? Please and thank you. It's pretty simple, and the prayers can be quite simple and they can be quite, quite elaborate. But the thing that's I think is so interesting is you don't have to believe in a higher power for this practice to work. It's like, and I've seen it. It's very interesting to me. And my science brain is like, well, that's pretty cool. But when you think about it, you don't have to believe in air to breathe, and
No.
you don't have to believe in gravity for it to act on you,
Mhm.
right? So it's all good, right? But we are aware of things that maybe we're aware of things that we carry. As a practitioner, I help you get in touch with some of the things that you carry, and we also have kind of a skeleton, a little bit of a structure, like a map of certain things that are represented in certain places in the body where energy tends to get stuck. And so we kind of start from there. And I'll just I can do a little bit with you, but I'd like to do a general clearing for the group, for all the listeners. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah, it's higher power. The name, we don't even have to say the name because it knows we're talking about it. It doesn't have to have it. We don't have to call its name, but what we want to release, and then please and thank you, gratitude and humility.
Well, for me, I mean, as you mentioned it, whenever you are going into a new place that you are going to try something that probably it's new for you, but that it has been developed over a lot of years of practicing those techniques, you are already open when you go to those places because you are already trying to heal. That's the main purpose. So I assume that many of the people that go, they go into an open awareness, and just as they ask, they are going to receive the energy to heal the whatever the ancestral burden it is.
Mhm.
Because when you are closed and you are not believing in the things, that's when probably some people might experience that it's not working. But
Mhm.
you are not already in that place where you can be receiving or a recipient of the energy. No.
That's true. I have had a few instances, maybe two in a number of them, where I did group events and somebody walked in to the event with this energy. You can't heal me no matter what you do. That kind of attitude. I actually I've had that happen twice, and they actually wanted they actually raised their hand and wanted to go through the process, and within the group. And it was just interesting working with them because they were very defended. They were very, I wouldn't say that word closed, because I don't feel that's accurate. I feel like they were just defended because they carried so much burden, right? And so knowing that, it gave me information as a practitioner that we need to do some clearing around everything that can bring up a defended person that can create that energy. Let's just start there and clear that, right? So they may not get as much help as somebody who's open, but they still get help, right? And even with that kind of energy, it doesn't matter. Creator can work on anything. That's with the infinite. I'm not going to limit the infinite, right?
No. And what is some of the most common, not well, places, as you mentioned, where people stick or have their energy storage?
Oh, well, right at the neck, the base of the neck, one side or the other. That's pretty common. That's blamed, judged, and misunderstood. or maybe being blamed, being judged, being misunderstood, or blaming, judging, and misunderstanding others. Yeah, that's one. We get a lot in the upper chest, which we kind of see as grief, unresolved grief. Of course, heartache. We get stuff in the heart, betrayal, unrequited love, judgmental kind of love, kind of all kinds of relationship problems, that kind of thing. We get things in the head, headaches, which is can have to do with being hard-headed or stubborn or overthinking, that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
It's I could sit here and go on for a couple hours on this.
I know.
That's just kind of right off the bat, a couple of pretty main places where the jaw, anger, right?
When they sleep and they tight their teeth and they have
Right.
okay.
Yep. Yeah, that's unresolved anger and if it's on the right, in this model, if it's on the right, it's male, unresolved anger with males, by males, of males, and on the left it's female. So that's just the way we work the model. And it doesn't have to be, it's male or female energy. It doesn't necessarily, hasn't got to do with the sexual organs. It has to do with the energy that the person's putting out. Yeah.
Okay. Is there a process to have some narrative about the problems? Do they picture themselves when they were children and trying to access those moments of pain, or there's no recalling of those moments?
Well, we don't ask them to go back into traumatic experiences, but there's 5 techniques in this practice. I could take you through that one and we could illustrate it for the group, but you'd be doing it, having never done it before. I could take you through the way that we do that. It's fairly quick, but we don't, what we do is we ask you where you feel something. If you have an issue, I mean, we could do it right now if you want, and I can show you. It's not, it's pretty quick, but it's a little different than, it's not really like therapy. We're not doing that. We do something a little bit different, and we let the body tell us what the thing is. It's pretty cool. Yeah, we're really trying to get the person in the body, accessing the wisdom in the body, which is like 90% at least, maybe 95% of what we're putting out is from the body. The rest is from the head, right? Yeah.
Okay, well, it would be nice to demonstrate.
Great. Okay. So, what do you have a kind of an issue in your own life it's kind of an elephant in the room, or something that's like a pattern, an unhealthy pattern that keeps showing up? Oh, not that again. You have any of that, like anything like that in your family? Like, everybody's got something.
Yeah, I mean, conflict in relationships, it's
Okay.
a pattern.
Okay, conflict in relationship. Where do you feel that in the body?
Usually,
Right here, in this moment, right in this moment. We all do this in the present moment.
okay.
Is it a conflict around a specific person? Maybe we need to get a little bit specific. Certain person, or would you like to keep it more general for this podcast?
I think it's more general.
Okay.
And right now, it's in the knee, left knee.
Left knee. Okay. What's the 0 to 10 of intensity of sensation in the left knee?
Well, it went down because I stopped running. I assume that it was from running, but it also mixed up with some of the conflicts that I have had in relationships in the past months. So right now, I would say,
just in this moment, what's the level of intensity on the left knee from 0 to 10 in this moment?
4.
4. Okay. Relax the breath and just put your attention on the 4, the sensation of the 4 in the knee. And just wait for an image or memory to come to you. First one that comes in, don't look for it, just let it come to you. I mean, when you got it, if it's too personal, you don't have to share, but if you can share, how old are you and what's happening?
Well, it was when I broke up with the mother of my daughter.
Okay. Okay. What was stressful about that? Or in the most stressful part of that, obviously it was stressful. In the most stressful part of that, what are you saying to yourself?
Saying to myself,
Yeah.
I was mostly anger. I'm saying that I can't deal with the situation. I just want to have peace.
Okay. I can't deal with this. I just want to have peace. 3
Yes.
slow breaths into that. Just repeat that as you take 3 slow breaths. I can't deal with this. I just want to have peace.
I can deal with that.
Quietly, just repeat it quietly to yourself why you do those 3 slowest breaths you've ever taken. Super slow breath. Okay, how does that feel in the knee? Bigger, smaller, different?
No, different.
Different, yeah. Did it move at all?
I felt a little twitch, very subtle.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. You feel like, so while you were doing the breath work, which is important to stay present and do that beautiful breath work with the phrase that you were telling yourself, I was doing a silent, a quiet clearing in the background. So we were both bringing in our side of the work, and you felt a change. Now I'll do a little bit out loud so you can get a kind of a sense. Do you have a name for your higher power? If you have one?
Universe.
Universe, okay. Universe for David and all of his ancestors through all space, all time, all dimensions, realms, lives, and incarnations. For all hurts and wrongs done to them in thought, word, or deed. Any hurts and wrongs they did to others, whether knowingly or unknowingly, and any hurts and wrongs they did to themselves. Please help them all to forgive each other, release one another, forgive themselves, find peace with one another, and find peace in themselves, please and thank you. For any time anyone was abandoned, not supported, nurtured, or loved the way they needed. Times they abandoned others, weren't able to support, nurture, and love others the way they needed, and times they weren't able to love and support themselves. Please help them all to forgive one another and forgive themselves for all that happened, no matter what it was. Please and thank you. Now here's for the knee specifically. For any time any of the men had difficulty moving forward in life. Please help them all to forgive one another, forgive themselves, find peace with one another, and find peace with themselves. Everything that led up to that, everything emanated down in the lineage because of it. Please help them all find peace with one another, release one another, release themselves, and find peace with themselves, please. Thank you. Now take a nice big breath in and let it out. And just notice how that feels in the body.
Felt like as if I were releasing weight.
Exactly. Yeah, isn't that interesting? Yeah,
Yeah.
so we get weighed down by our own stuff. We get attached, it's not really anybody's fault. It's just kind of the nature of the human. And we come into this life with the burden, the residue of unresolved burden in the lineage. We can't help it. It comes in as information for the current generation. It's information.
Mm.
It's this practice, it's not the only one, but this practice helps us release that which no longer serves. It's not the only one. I do a yoga practice that does that too. But and there are other practices that help release it. It's just, this is the one I love the most.
It is very, as you mentioned, very practical. Also is, you can feel it instantaneously.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. It's very quick. So it's a, and people, this stuff is I can't say that we're working on trauma, because I'm not a trauma therapist, and I'm very careful about that. And we don't say that we heal people, because we're not doctors. But what we notice is when we work on the spiritual end of things around issues that people have, that is very helpful to them, and it helps them find a degree of freedom that they otherwise hadn't been able to find.
Yeah, and now that you mentioned something when you were reading the, I believe is like the, well, let's not call it prescription, but it's like the underlying background of what is being healed. In my case, the knee, the left knee. You mentioned something about the lineage to move forward. And when you mentioned that, I also, well, it's the same. It's a conflict of relationship with my father, but he's, well, it is not, how do you say? It is not a coincidence. It is that it is also probably bringing pain to my knee, because he has been stuck in his life for a long time. And for me, it was painful to even talk with him and see him, because he was always mentioning the same thing and same thing. So I just stepped away from him, and I have been feeling a lot better. So, but when you mentioned that, I think that many of the energy also left from that relationship conflict, no?
Beautiful. Well, this is why this is the another quite a remarkable, extraordinary thing about this practice, is because we're calling in the energy of the infinite, of universe, which has no limit on its power. And it when we ask, we get help. All I'm doing is focusing the work. It's doing work. I'm not doing anything but just kind of focusing here. You're doing the work by being present. It's doing the healing. It's doing the work there. Yeah.
Nice. And now that we have done this practice, and that I think is going to be very enlightening for the people of the podcast, and as you mentioned, every one of us has experienced some kind of pain and is experiencing some kind of struggle or pattern in their lives. So in your case, and to illustrate also what you released during your journey, what kind of conflicts that you feel comfortable to mention did you release from that chronic pain that you have?
Oh, beautiful. Great question. I'll give you a kind of an odd, what I thought was quite odd, but quite remarkable. I had an accident with the window when I was 14, and I was trying to the door was stuck and it had panes of glass in it, and I was hitting the wood part of the panes, but I missed, and I went right through the glass and I cut my wrist. And I ended up having like 200 wires put in there to hold me together. It's still there. Just call me the bionic woman. And the thing was, is that I wasn't able, there was a lot of scar tissue in there. And I couldn't really, I wasn't able to use my fingers on a musical instrument. I couldn't play the guitar anymore. I couldn't play a recorder or the flute. I practiced and practiced, and I was just like, I think I went for about 7 or almost 10 years after that, trying to, it worked that area, and it just wouldn't. It just hurt and hurt and hurt, and I was like, okay, whatever. I'm just not, I guess this is not for me anymore. This is not, I'm not supposed to play a musical instrument. I'm a gong player now, which is kind of fun. But yeah, that's for my yoga practice. But it's a beautiful healing instrument. But while I was in the pain management program, I never said anything to Dr. Peter Prescott, who ran that program, who was the doctor that ran it, or John, who was doing the ancestral clearing. They didn't know anything about this accident, and they didn't know anything about my struggle and the pain and everything. They didn't know anything about it. But he was doing clearings. John was doing clearings while I was in Pain Track every week, every day during the week. And I remember on a Saturday, I was there for, as I said, 52 days. And I was one Saturday, I don't know if it was 1 or 2 weeks into the program, I was sitting at a table, just minding my own business, and I started tapping my fingers to some music I was listening to. And you know what happened? Nothing. There was no pain. And I was like, and I didn't have any trouble, like, they coordinated. There was no, it was just, they just flowed. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is like, it's gone. And it was just like, it was almost like a side effect to the thing that all other stuff he was working on, but it was included. It was real interesting. So that's one example that I thought was pretty cool. I had a lot of irritable bowel. Oh, as you can imagine, with that kind of, well, for people that understand that medicine, that creates a lot of irritable bowel in the system. And it took me, until I was in, as like I said, I was in that program for 52 days. It took me until about day 42 for that irritable bowel to clear out fully. But over time, every day it got a little bit better and a little bit better, a little bit calmer, and a little bit calmer. And for somebody, I mean, I felt like I'd been given a new body. I felt like I had access to my lungs, to a full breath for the first time since I could remember. I'd had irritable bowel my whole life. So it was just like, wow, I get a new body here, right?
Yes.
So those are just 2 examples, and there were lots of other things that I went in there with a history of a very sore back, and that cleared out pretty quickly. We used Qigong as well as ancestral clearing, and of course I was not on medication. We were using meditation. I had a yoga practice anyway. I was using chanting. We had a full program of lots of things, but that thing with my arm and that irritable bowel, that was ancestral clearing, I felt. Yeah.
Beautiful. And as you mentioned, we did the practice with me and the example of the knee, and it was a side effect that I realized that I was releasing also the pain of the conflict with my father.
Yeah, so, I would call that an effect.
Well, yes.
That an effect. Yeah, right.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're releasing. So we got the knee, the pain in the knee to let go, but also the stuff around the whole relationship. You've got some space in there. It's breathing now.
Nice. So how can people start detecting some of these repetitive storage of energy that they need to, well, of course, everyone would love to have a new body just by releasing this kind of energy. So if we want to help the people that is listening and trying to release is there something that they can do by themselves to start in the practice of releasing the pain?
Yes, they can go to my website, onto my resource page, elizabeth-kipp.com, elizabeth-kipp.com. Go to the resource page, go down. There's a free offering for 10 ancestral clearing prayers, and you can start working with them. You can just work with one of them if you want.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I mean, you're asking higher power to come in and help you on your behalf around the things listed in that prayer. And you can always put in, if you've got a specific, I had a fight with my spouse the other day and I'm really upset about it. I don't know how to let it go. Can you help me, whatever. Can you help me, please guide me through this. Please help me release any resentment I have towards my spouse, just as an example, right?
Yeah.
Please and thank you, please and thank you. But that little booklet's a free e-booklet, and there's 10 very powerful prayers in there, and that's a start.
Beautiful. Well, I mean, with this question, we can like round up the topic, and if you want to add anything, just let me know. But what is as you mentioned that you are also curious and science-based in why do the things happen, what is your explanation for the pain and the emotions and all of these ancestral emotions and patterns? Why do they stuck in certain parts of the body, or what is the rationale for that?
Well, you're asking the mechanism, and I mean, ultimately, where I went with that question was, what's the actual mechanism? Science hasn't discovered that yet. However, we do know, we have seen that, for instance, survivors of the Holocaust, their descendants tend to have this very similar kind of worry energy, hopelessness, anger, lots of kind of that negativity, all kinds of other cultural things, slavery, injustice of any kind. All of us have that to some extent, and the effects of war, battle, Holocaust, persecution. We all have that in us. And my explanation, couple of ways. You can look at it. We know that in the DNA from father and mother down into the child, that gives us kind of the hardware. That gives us it's like the hardware on the computer. We also get the software, which is like the program on the computer, that on the epigenetic level, that's the environmentally affected. And ancestral clearing will help you rewrite that program. It's not the only one. There's lots of ways you can kind of rewire that program. Yoga is another one. Qigong is another one. EMDR. There's a bunch of different ways, that we can kind of rewire the behavior in the brain. But that's the explanation. That's an explanation. Another way of looking at it is look at quantum physics. Yeah. In the present moment, you can access past, present, and future. And quantum physics tells us we're not just all connected, we're entangled with one another. We're entangled. We're not just entangled in the present, we're entangled in the past and the future all at once. That's kind of a mind-blowing concept, but stay with me for a moment. So the egg that was you was in your mother, but it was in your grandmother first. And your grandmother was in her grandmother. So all the egg experienced all the stuff that all the stuff that your grandmother went through and your mother went through. And your grandmother's egg experienced everything that her grandmother and her mother went through, right? So it's this energetic flow, and it's all entangled. So you can see how it flows from one generation to another, if that makes sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense. And actually, that's the way I explain it in the book, because yes,
Awesome.
this is just amazing because I wanted to get to that part of the talk and of the underlying things, because I think that the audience that I try to manage is people that are more curious and many times are accepting about certain things. So when you give them the rational or the scientific explanation, which is always one, because now we are merging the science and spirituality and all of those realms.
That's right.
We can be open to believe more and to heal and to experience that progress of the information. And as you mentioned, the epigenetic marks are everywhere, and mainly in the emotions. I also just mentioned that in a podcast that I do in Spanish, and I just recorded with my brother, and he was a guest in my podcast, and we were speaking about all of the new science that is coming with the epigenetic, and that 90 or more than 90% of the diseases that we are now witnessing come from emotions, come from all those patterns. And as you mentioned, and it's beautiful, the comparison that you made with quantum physics, because we believe, because that's where we are now, that this is the present, the future is tomorrow, and the past is yesterday. But there is no separation of time in our energy. It is all together, and that's what makes that accumulation or buildup of energy in certain times more physically experienced, no?
Yes, and because we're working in the present moment, and we can access the past, present, and future, right? All in this present moment, that stuff that got stuck from the past, it comes off just like that. It can come off in layers. It can drop all at once, like it did with my wrist. Just like, whoom, it was gone. I didn't even know, and it went so quickly and with such ease. I didn't even notice it until I went and tried to do something that I was like, oh, I can do this. It's like it was stunning to me, right? So effective. Other things, because I've been in this work, and I'm not just a practitioner of the work, I'm in the work for myself. I have other parts of me that I'm holding on to. Remember we talked about, did we just talk about this? Being super guarded, having our defenses up. With the clients that are just so defended, I work on their defenses. That stuff takes a little time. It comes off in layers depending on how strong it's been built up.
Beautiful. Yes, I think that's pretty much a lot of information for people to wonder and to now to have the evidence with the example that we did, and to really dive more into your website, into the practices. And of course, they are encouraged to do a scheduled session with you if they want to clear this. But it was a very good reference that you gave us for the beginners, so that they can try first those, and then they will start knowing what is coming or what needs more guidance and support. So
beautiful.
Anything that you want to mention?
I would like to say, to end here, is that I would like everybody to really understand and realize that the greatest healer in your life lives inside of you, right? Doctors can set a bone and they can stitch up a wound, but they can't tell the body how to heal. Only the body knows how to do that. So when we're sick and we're, I was raised to look outwardly to who's going to heal me. And I was kind of not looking in the right, I was looking in the wrong direction, right? They bring in support. Doctors, the whole healthcare, all healthcare workers bring the support, the knowledge, the the correction that we need, but the body is the thing that does the healing. And I just want to make sure people really get that.
Yeah, beautiful.
Infinite intelligence in every cell in the body is right there.
Exactly. Many times I use the analogy of when we are in school, and some of the teachers in my past told me that you already have a 10 in this subject, but from the 10, you can come down to 9, 8, 7, depending on you. So for me, health is the same. We come from 100% many times, and we come to lower parts of the healing process because we either carry those burdens or we make the wrong choices. No?
Yes, agreed. That's
Okay.
true. We have to learn to make better choices and to listen to the body better. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Elizabeth. It has been a very enlightening and full of knowledge session. And I am guessing that a lot of people is going to jump on your website and use the tools that you gave us today.
Well, thank you so much. Just
Thank
make
you
sure
very
that you
much.
put a hyphen in between Elizabeth and Kipp, because ElizabethKipp.com is a web designer and a photographer, and she's amazing, but she's not me.
Okay, perfect.
Thank
I
you.
will just post it as you send it to me. Thank you
Thank
very
you so
much.
much. Thank you. I sure appreciated it. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.